Have you ever been in a sticky situation and if you needed somebody and they weren't there for you, or vice versa, somebody needed you and you just couldn't answer for whatever reason that might be? Today's topic is on being there for people and how important that is for our lives. So sit back, relax, and let's dive deep into this topic on today's episode of the Bump Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Bump Podcast. I'm your host, Shamir, here with my co-host and beloved brother, Nabil.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this brand new episode today.
Indeed. Today, we're going to be talking about being there for people, doing what everybody else doesn't do for us at times. And, we just want to be able to incorporate this in our lives because it's a good practice to have. I think that throughout the years, I've been able to develop an understanding of being myself no matter who's around me or what is going on.
Absolutely.
And especially because it sets you apart as a human being. Anyways, don't forget also to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Turn on the ringle dingle dingle. Thank you everyone that has supported us to this day. Mm-hmm. We love you guys.
Absolutely.
And we got a bunch of new people and new guests that are coming on very soon. It's just they're scheduled out a little bit more, because they're more important than us right now. They are more famous, I guess. So they're definitely
just busier.
Yeah, they're just really busier. But we have them on the schedules, so stay tuned to that. Nabil, do you have like a meaning or something that
the
that
significance?
Covers this?
Yes, of course. So the meaning of being there, right? There's like the definition itself, which is just loyal, faithful, and dependable, right? That's just kind of the simplified version. But then kind of a little bit more in depth, of course, is being there for someone means being contactable, so reachable, be contactable, sure. But above all, it means being a steadying presence with a consistent and honest and realistic response. Or
sure.
I'm going to add a little bit more to that and say that sometimes being there for someone literally means just sitting there with them, being silent.
That's absolutely right.
I have had the tendency of always trying to have an answer, a response for people.
Yeah.
Try to hopefully help them out and give them the answers that they might seek. And if I don't have it, then I don't have it, right? But sometimes I've just realized, and I've learned through other podcasters who I watch and enjoy very much, through church sermons, through books that I've read, especially a couple books that I've read lately. They said it's important that sometimes people, when they're grieving, like if they lost someone or, let's say they split up, they divorced or broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend,
for sure,
whatever it might be, sometimes it's best if you sit there in silence with them because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They just simply want you to be there and just let them let out their emotions, however that is.
Right.
Then you can start pouring into them as the days go by, the weeks go by, and what have you.
You know what? I'm going to give a great example.
Talk to us.
Nabil said in one of the previous episodes that he was part of the Cobra Kai the new season that just released. And
tell us what you guys think about part one, by the way.
Definitely, for sure.
Pretty good.
Yes, it's really good. And Nabil actually appears very vaguely
in the behind the scenes.
On the behind the scenes. If you recognize his what is it?
His body figure. That's what it was.
Yes.
People were telling me about it. Like I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it yet.
Right.
And people were like, "Oh man, I think you were there, but your face is covered." I'm like, "Of course it is." So once I watched it, I was just like, "That is me." But it's just like it went from zoomed or what is it? Not focused.
Yeah,
I wasn't in focus, and neither were the actors. And then once they focused, it was like cell phone in Nabil's face. It's like,
Lord, yeah. They did. What is it from Monsters Inc? They covered him.
In the commercial, and they covered Mike Wazowski everywhere when you could just see his feet at best, maybe his little helmet,
maybe his belly.
I don't remember.
But anyways, back to Cobra Kai. If you guys are a fan, Tori, well, for those that haven't seen the season,
okay, spoiler, I guess. Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry.
We'll write down in the video like where you can skip to, so you're not spoiled.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So anyways, Tori, her mom passed away of a drug overdose, which hurt my heart personally. But a lot of people, this is a good situation to give as an example, because her mom passed away. She was grieving. She didn't know how to cope with the situation. And then people trying to be there for her were definitely not. They just
heard it. That's a great analogy, man.
Yeah, it's not
recent
they
times.
weren't. Yeah, exactly. We're definitely with the trend, guys. So we're trying to keep up. But anyways, she, the people around her before, like in between the match where she was gonna whack Sam.
Yep.
And then the mom and Daniel LaRusso
tried to stop it. And Johnny wasn't stopping it.
Yeah, and then they were like, "What happened?" She's like, "My mom died. This and that." And fast forward, she's still grieving, and because
no one understands her situation.
What are they called?
Miyagi-Do.
I'm assuming because they didn't understand her situation, that's where she ends up becoming part of
100%.
the Cobra Kai.
She joins back with Cobra Kai.
Right. Phenomenal. You guys are doing great. All you guys in Cobra Kai.
Now, I didn't know that part. Being on set, I didn't know that part. Whoa. I did know she was on Cobra Kai because I was there for that.
Right.
I just didn't know she like they killed her mom and stuff like that. I was like, oh shoot. And I feel like there's more to it than that. But this isn't the podcast for that.
But anyway, so there's times where people, usually a death or something like that is probably as
people's most vulnerable, as low as they can get.
Yeah, and then especially if people tend to rely on alcohol or any substance. We talk about this all the time, but this is a topic we want to talk about because also we have been hanging out often with Stan Van Gundy, the ex-NBA coach.
Look him up.
Yes, definitely.
The guy is an important guy within the NBA history.
Yes, he's been to the playoffs 8 times in his career.
That's
he's
not a lot.
It ain't much. He almost led the Miami Heat to a championship in 06 when Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal, Haslam, all these players were there at the time. But he ended up leaving the team mid-season, and then Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra was the ones that led him to the championship. But anyways, the thing is that Stan opened up to us, and he told us about his wife passing last year in August of a suicide. And he opened up on a podcast about it before we even knew about this, but we didn't know about the podcast. And honestly, did you see the podcast, how that guy was talking to Stan?
I'm not trying to bash him, but I just saw bits and pieces.
There are times, this is why I'm tying all this together, because there are times where you have to watch out how you talk to people, especially when they're grieving or they're going through a tough situation, because the least I want to hear if I'm grieving someone or I'm going through a tough situation is somebody calling me an asshole. This guy,
is that literally, what they called him?
Bro, he's literally like, okay, because he was trying to say to Stan, like, hey, you are being too hard on yourself, thinking that your wife committed suicide because of his fault or whatever it may be. And I understand you could have just been like, hey, he could have used different words, but he's like, you're just being an asshole to yourself. Whether you know this person or not, bro, this guy is still recent. It's not even been a year since that happened.
Yeah, that could have been triggering to somebody else.
Right. To me, it would have been. I'm telling you right now, it would have been to me, because it's just like, bro, like, you have to watch your words, and you have to watch out how you approach people. Sometimes, again, it's like Nabil just said, you just want to be heard. And one of the past podcasts last season, I was talking about a good homeboy of mine. We were doing my radio for my truck, and he was just venting about his suicidal thoughts and all these things. So what happens is that if this person is expressing themselves, sometimes they just want to be heard, and this is exact words that I said.
Just get it out.
Just listen to them. The same thing. What do you want out of when you need support system of mental support or just whatever it may be? Like, what do you expect out of people? Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, have the common sense and the logic.
That's part of it. And if you don't have any common sense for it or logic, like, do your research. After listening or watching this podcast, do your research, and how can you be of service to other people? And mind you, it's not just your loved ones. You should be able to do that. We all need to practice more how to do this with strangers.
Of course.
And where we were hanging out with Mr. Van Gundy recently, we had the opportunity to meet other strangers and what have you, and hear different ideas and opinions, and it was such a lovely time. I enjoyed myself so much because it was just I felt like I was able to put into practice some of the things that we're talking about on our podcast, and even mentioning our podcast, people were just like, "Oh, this is really interesting. This is," and we had some people backing us up, and that was just so lovely. And I want us to be aware of that. And also, if you're grieving, if you're the one going through the process, whether it is because someone passed away, or you lost a job, or your significant other isn't there with you anymore,
right?
Or whatever it might be, and you want somebody to listen to you, whether it's through text, whether it's through a phone call, FaceTime, or in person,
right?
Tell them what you want. Like, hey, listen, John Doe, I just want you to listen to me. I don't want you to say a lick of. I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to listen to me because I need to get this out of my system. Otherwise, I'm going to explode. I'm going to lose my mind. Whatever. Mm-hmm. That way, that other person knows. Also, make sure you are going to, let's say, the right person.
Right.
In your life. If you don't really have a good person that you feel like you can talk to or vent to or what have you, try and find that person.
Right.
For me, my first place is always to go to God. That's just my lifestyle. That is my choice. That is because throughout, different experiences and things that I have gone through, I go to the Lord first because I know I can be opened with him, and it might sound like I'm just talking to the walls of my apartment or, inside of my car or in the bathroom or whatever the heck it is. And it might sound like I'm just talking to myself, but I feel so much relief by the time I've done it because I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be hated on. I'm not going to be anything. If anything, at best, I feel lighter, and then I can just kind of rest. And then, I'll go to the people closest to me and let them know whatever it is that I need to let them know, whether it is my brother, whether it is my wife, whether it is some of my closest friends, whether it's my parents, whatever. Thankfully, we have good people in our lives where we can talk to, and the judgment is very minimal.
Right.
I can't say it's non-existent because that's not true, but heck, that's what we want to do with our outlet here on the Bump Podcast. We want to be able for you guys to feel that same thing, where if you want to talk about something and you don't even want us to respond, you just want to be like, hey guys, you guys have made me feel the courage or the comfortability to be able to talk about the situation. I want to talk about it. Now, if we have the ability to help you guys, we certainly want to do that. So, DM us or private message us or email us, whatever the heck it is. And we'd be happy to help you guys in whatever capacity that is and point you into the right direction to professional help if you wanted that.
For sure.
Something more deeper into the meaning. I don't know if you want to add more.
No, go ahead. I'll run it after that.
Again, what it truly means to be there for somebody is that, you rely on the support of the right people and anything else that you can offer to do to help. Take action. Don't just be, I'm here for you if you need anything. And then when they need you, you're just like, I've got to go out with my family. I've got to, do some things or whatever. You never know.
Right.
I think it's important. And if you know that person is really going through it, let's say if you're driving and you got somebody else with you in the car, try to switch places. Hey, listen, do you mind if you take the wheel? Because I really got to help this friend. I really got to talk to them. I want to make sure that I give them my full attention. Whatever it might be, just make the time. I had a friend, you know who it is, but I'm not going to mention them live, who had that kind of expectation, but it was kind of like, it was almost impossible to meet. Their expectation of it was so high. I had a friend who, in multiple instances got hurt physically, sometimes was hurt emotionally and stuff like that. But, my wife and I were there for them and their family as well during the healing process and all that other stuff. But then one or two times they needed help, and I just was not able to assist them in that right then and there in that moment, specifically because we were moving. So it's just like I can't literally drop everything when it's just me and my wife doing this stuff. And then you, of course, joined us later on.
Sure.
And they were just kind of disappointed by it. It's just like, oh, well, and they like to throw it as a joke, like I'm just kidding. But when you repeat it 3 or 4 times, the same joke,
I'm starting to believe it.
I'm 100% believing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, no, man. And anyway, nowadays, unfortunately, we're not friends. Because again, in my mind, they just have these unmet expectations, and I'm not here to give up my own life to cater to your needs only, and you don't even cater to some of my needs.
Right.
And that right there is a red flag. I'm saying this because it's important. You guys should be aware of that too. Mm-hmm. You know, there are some people that like to somewhat abuse it. Sometimes they're just not even conscious of it, and they want to take advantage of you trying to be helpful, and instead they just want you to, like, you know, do things that they can do on their own.
Right.
And I hope I don't sound contradicting, because that's not the case. I want you guys to realize we have a certain limit we're able to help, literally.
Of course, yeah.
Before you burn out, like, you got to make sure it's a two-way thing, not because of, like, oh, from greed, like I give you and you give me. No, but like, if I'm carrying you in your weakest moment, I hope you can do the same thing for me, because I'm also going to get tired, whether it's emotionally or mentally, physically. So I definitely wanted to emphasize that, because I know what that's like, and it is just, you know, I'm a lot happier without that person in my life. Sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, people are like the seasons, you know, they come and go. There's people that remain for a very long time, or even forever, you know? And
you hit the nail on the head with one of the things I had here for sure. Everyone's in your life for a season. We've talked about that in previous episodes, and that's okay. That doesn't mean those people were terrible. That doesn't mean, oh, what a waste of time. No, that's just life. We are literally together for a season, and then sometimes it's interesting too, because sometimes people are in our lives for a season, they leave, years later go by, and then you guys see each other again. You're like, holy crap, and you catch up, and everything's just great, and they're back in your life again. So you never know.
Yeah,
you never know. I'm sorry. I know. I feel like I'm rambling, but I just wanted to throw in the Bible verse. Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 17 says, "Iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend." I mean, it's pretty straightforward and simple. You know what I mean? It's literally, I've got your back, you've got my back. We're going to make ourselves stronger, wiser, much more experienced because of it. You know, this is for everyone around the world, not just men. Because sometimes from this verse and from everything that's happening within this chapter of the verse, men will usually take that rather than women. And I think it's, to me, it applies to everybody, because, you know, there's another, dang, I didn't write it down. There's another Bible verse, and I think it's today's Bible verse, but it basically says, where two or more are gathered, I am there.
Correct. Yeah.
Meaning God is here with us. Right. And that's just something to keep in mind, right? For all of us fellow believers to keep in mind, is that, you know, it might seem like, oh, there's just two or three of us here to do the deed or whatever. You know, this is going to be a waste of time. No, it's because this is a good example, or maybe an analogy, whatever you want to see it as. Shamir and I are the only ones running the podcast, period. Right. In the future, I'd like to think we're going to have, you know, editors. We're going to have people making sure that the cameras look good for us, and that the sound is working for us, and all that other stuff. But right now, it's just the two of us running the whole show. Yeah. And in fact, he runs it a lot more than I do, because he does all the editing and all that stuff, and everything beautiful that looks when you guys are watching it like you are right now, it's because of this guy. Right. So the goal is at some point to where he doesn't have to do that. Right. I don't have to do that. None of us have to do that. And it's not in a selfish way. It's a form of progress, because then we'll be able to reach out other people more. We'll be able to actually go out there and bring way more guests to talk about their life experiences and expand this platform. That is the goal. Right. And so with anything in life you do, you can't do it by yourself. You have to have either someone or a group of people to be able to help you. I think it's just human nature.
Yeah, it's definite.
So yeah. Please talk.
You know, I was going through a situation this past week where I'm trying to get into the University of Central Florida, and I received a letter in an email.
A welcoming email, a loving email, even. Well, you saw his face, right? That's my sarcasm, because
it's terrible. Because of my criminal record, admissions and the school have sent my my application per se to get into the school to the student rights committee, and they want to interview me next week. because of my criminal record that I was affirming that I did commit my crimes back in the day.
Right.
And so, that's something that's it could be very discouraging. When I received the email, I showed it to my girlfriend. I was like, honey, what do you think about this? And I knew that I had to get over it because it's just.
But how did you feel? Were you offended or were you hurt?
I was definitely, it definitely tingled the heart. It definitely, it hit all the way home because it's just like, man, like it's incredible that to this day in society,
they want to close doors.
They want to continue to close doors, even though you already finished that sentence that judge gave you many years ago. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad. And I feel for every convict in this nation. And you guys are not alone. But what I'm trying to say is that there was a person that's my good gracious, essentially, that wrote a letter of recommendation. I'm gonna keep it anonymous.
Yeah, totally.
But I love her. She is definitely a wonderful human being. She is a doctor now, and she definitely got her doctorate degree through UCF. So she wrote the letter, and I'm already ready for the Zoom video next week. And I know I'm rehabilitated, and I know I'm going through my phase of growth and continuing to build through all these circumstances. But there's always that one person that'll be there for you, whether you have family members or not. You just got to go out there and look for it. Yeah, no, you've definitely been a huge support.
I just raised my hand mainly because, like, you told me we were I think we were going to record an episode of the podcast or something. You told me about it, and I felt offended too, not only because he's my brother. I guess that's part of being biased, right? But it irks. Actually, it just it pisses me off. I'm going to be straightforward about it. It pisses me off because people incarcerated, and we can make a whole episode about this, so I'm not going to ramble off about it too much, but people incarcerated, they're sinners like every single one of us.
For sure.
Now, in our eyes, was a lot of what they did could seem bigger than what, like, stealing a piece of candy from the candy store is.
Right.
And there's more to it than that. My point is, when you have people like him and other people that he knows too who want to progress and change their lifestyle to do better for society, within society, and society says, no, you're a criminal, we're going to close the door on you. But then the time that they had in being incarcerated, they were actually able to educate themselves because time has stopped for them. Right? Like, they literally... They can't do anything because they're serving their you're serving your sentence. Time is literally to educate yourself. Like when you would ask me to send you the Wall Street Journal, newspapers, and all that other stuff, you were educating and stipulating your mind. You and other people within the jail, within the prison. And you want to come out and you're motivated. You're like, you're probably smarter than even the people that went to college because there was less noise for y'all, like who's actually out there going to college, but also has a full-time job and probably is a parent. They don't have that 100% focus. So a lot of times I feel, and not all of you guys, but I feel like there are people out there that will cut corners to get the good grade, to get the degree, and then move forward within the career.
Lori Loughlin and her daughter.
Well,
just to throw one out there.
I'm
not criticizing them, but
he's not wrong, and I loved her in Full House and all that, but he's not wrong. He and other people are busting their butts, and then they're going to close the door shut in their face. And then it's like, okay, so then if they go back into a life of crime,
it's easy.
It's your fault. It's not society's fault. It's your fault. What is that? So anyway, and like I said, we can make a whole episode on that, and I think we should.
We definitely.
And we will.
We definitely will. For all the felons out there, we love you guys, and for all the family members too that are on the other side of the fence in freedom that are supporting those people.
That's it. I'm saying it right now, a 2-part episode where we get the former felons' points of views and then the family members' points of views.
For sure.
We're so going to do it. I don't know when, but I'm speaking it out right now.
We'll put it in the schedule. Anyways, so, what I'm trying to say out of all this is a point where it's like, man, I should be down. I should be going through, maybe some type of grief or just some type of annoyance and being bothered, but I'm not letting it bother me because, again, I understand my situation, and I ask that from anybody that's going through a tough situation, whether you have people or not, try to make the best out of every situation, whatever that may be.
Totally.
I want to add to what Nabil was saying. Things that we should do in order to be there for people is, let them know that you care and that they're there, that you're there to listen to them.
Absolutely.
Check in with them and offer to talk about how they're feeling. I've had a homeboy lately. He I know when he's going through depression or whatnot, when he disappears for like a month and I haven't heard from him, or he'll just like text me, he won't call me. And lately I've just been checking up on him because back in the day he had suicidal thoughts. Not anymore from what I noticed. And that's the crazy thing. Back to Stan's to Van Gundy real quick. Yeah. From what I saw in the podcast and what he expressed to us in person and on the podcast, I noticed that like he said that she was struggling through a lot of mental issues, but like he never thought in his right mind that she would do that. She would end it. Yeah. Right. So I encourage every single person out there that's listening to this to pay very close attention to if that person is willing to go that far or not. We do have the link down below. Always, there's not a single episode that we don't have the suicide hotline. Yeah, you guys can get in contact with them. That's the most quickest method to that type of situation. We definitely encourage those things because it is a crisis here in this nation. A lot of people are going through those tough circumstances. So if you don't know how to handle a situation for a friend or yourself, please call that number today or whenever you guys are going through the situation, or your loved one, friend, or a person you might not know. So I try to be there for my friends and for my loved ones. Sometimes
he is really good at that.
I take a moment out of the day just to make phone calls to people.
Yes, he does.
Like whether it's 10, 15 minutes. You all right? You good? Hey, or if they're calling me, sometimes people are calling me because they know it's like the other day when I was on that interview, we were going back and forth with the guy that was interviewing me. And it's just like we both can talk so much. And that's just me in general. Like I could talk on and on and on about anything, And
I'm surprised I'm not deaf yet.
Yeah, at this point, But at the end of the day, that was one of the reasons, too, for the podcast.
And I feel like that part of you developed when you were incarcerated and came out.
Yeah, I think so, because I was very to myself back in the day. I was definitely an introvert for sure. And even the tests that I used to do, the 16 personalities tests online that you could do.
Isn't it an interesting test?
It is. It's very accurate. It's very accurate. But yeah, so back in the day I was an introvert. Now I've taken a lot of personality and aptitude tests and whatnot, and they all say that I'm an extrovert.
Totally extroverted.
Things could change. And
that could be for the better. You know what I mean? Introverts. Yeah, sure. I feel like I've always been in the fine line between introvert and extrovert, because there's moments where I feel shy and I just don't want to talk or feel discouraged to talk.
And then there's
days where I'm just motivated, I'm pumped, I'm ready to go.
For sure.
So it's interesting. Sure. It's interesting.
So then, at the end of the day, I when somebody calls me, I within the first minute or two, I'll be like, "Are you okay? How you doing? How you feeling? What's going on? Talk to me." And I always emphasize to my friends and family, like, "Hey, talk to me. What's going on? I'm here to listen." I'm all ears. I'm not all mouth and ears. I'm all ears, because there's some times where you have to let people talk. So be there for them. And even if people aren't there for you, but you have friends, be what you want people to be with you, even though they don't give it to you. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Because, sometimes, again, it's what we were saying earlier. Sometimes people get influenced by what's their surroundings, but it's like also you should know your essence, who you are and what you bring to the table, no matter what the situation is. That defines you, and it brings so much more value to you. Yes. You're a high commodity at that point. So always have that in mind.
I love that.
Like I just said, listen. When they want to talk, listen carefully and take their thoughts and feelings seriously. Don't give advice or opinions, and don't judge them. This is a judgment-free zone. Again, we do, like I just said, I said Lori Loughlin, but that is not judging them. That is definitely, the judge already judged them. I'm just giving an example of what they did.
That's a solid point. Yeah.
So let's not confuse things
or take it out of context.
Correct. That's a better one. Be understanding. Remember that depression isn't anyone's fault, and that it's not something they could snap out of. Like any illness, depression needs treatment and time for recovery. super important. Like Nabil said earlier, if you don't know something, educate yourself. Go online, go on any platforms that could help you figure out something. Read a book of depression, anxiety, or whatever, in order to inform yourself and
you're more prepared now for when those situations arise.
Exactly. You know.
Yeah.
Encourage them, encourage people, encourage your loved ones, friends, anybody. Gently encourage them to help themselves by staying physically active, eating a balanced diet, and doing things they enjoy. You can also encourage them to talk about their feelings, which can often help them feel better. Another thing too, sometimes encouragement, sometimes it's also leaving a person alone, giving them their space.
Wow, that's good. Yes.
To comprehend and the process of acceptance. Again, acceptance to me has been a huge thing in my life, and I encourage everybody, because it's very hard sometimes to accept a situation.
Wow,
it's like when Brother Buddha died. You know what I'm saying? That took me a little while for me to, you know, he's going on a year dead now in August.
Time
you know
flies.
what I'm saying? It flies, but like, man, the first couple months when I found out,
found out way after it happened, right?
Like 2 months after.
Oh, I thought it was further than that.
No, it was like 2 months
That's
after.
I said way after.
Yeah, but I mean, still 2 months.
2 months
the person's
is 2
dead,
months,
you know, because sometimes we'd go out like 1 or 2 months without speaking because he's working, I was working, everything else, a kid, you know, so much responsibility, school. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, you know, I was recognizing this guy ain't hit me up, no social media activity, nothing. So then I call his cousin, and I found out. It hurt me so much. You know, this was a cellmate that I had in prison for my last 7 months of my bid, and this guy became so important in my life, in and out, because when he got released, that year and a half that he was alive, we stayed in contact.
How much later was he released after your sentencing?
I think it was a couple months.
Oh,
I got out in July. He got out in the week before you got married, March. So what is that? Like 8 months difference? Like 8 month difference, give or take. And what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it is tough to lose things in life, whether it's a person, a situation, a place, opportunities. Again, the whole line. Just losing something sometimes sucks, but you know, at the end of the day, sometimes that void needs to come for a reason, and we need to figure it out. And again, you know, whether it happens to us or to someone else, we need to deal with these situations accordingly. This is another one. Help them find support. Your friend might not be aware of professional support options are available, or they may be unsure of how to get support. You can help them find support, even if it can be daunting to see a health professional.
Yes.
A lot of people always have the misconception and a misunderstanding of a therapist. Van Gundy, he said on the podcast, he was like, hey, he sees his therapist on a weekly basis.
I love that.
That is so
that shows level of maturity.
Yes, and that you're a true man and accepting, like, man, I am going through a tough situation, and that I need to go to therapy and have someone, you know, be there for me. And also, real quick, excuse me for the background noise if you hear any. It's just my kid is here today. He's hanging out with us on the weekend. So yes. Anyways, we love him.
We do love him very
much.
Well, and to say more, right? He's the kind of man who's lived a successful life. It's successful in the eyes of society, right? Like he's accomplished so many things. I'm sure he's economically stable and all that other stuff.
Hold on, are you sure
about what?
That he's economically stable after hanging out over there?
No, I know his place is. Yeah. We could talk about that all day long. It was incredible.
Yeah, good experience.
I was just trying to be humble about it, I guess. he's definitely more economically stable than we are, that's for sure. Sure. God bless him. Think about it, though. He probably comes home to an empty home. Like,
for sure, yeah, because all his kids live in different states.
Correct.
And his brother lives in a different state. I think Jeff is still a coach. I'm not sure if he's still.
I'm not sure either.
He might be, but.
Point is,
he
like,
definitely does,
you know,
walk into an empty home.
Sometimes you can walk into an empty home, and that eats you alive mentally and emotionally. So the fact that he's like, you know, I'm going to go out and seek therapy to seek some sort of help. And the beautiful thing about therapy, we've talked about this on plenty of our previous episodes. is that it's not just somebody saying, well, we're going to give you some pills and this will calm this and this will calm that. No. In the therapy sessions I've been in, marriage counseling, as well as just for myself, not once have I ever needed to be medicated for nothing. Right. What they've given us is different exercises that we put into practice. Something as simple as deep breathing in different ways, to calm your heart rate, to calm your thought process, and just kind of be present without any distractions or anything of that nature. Right. That can go a long way. And if you can put aside your ego, this applies more towards men than women, because I don't want to misquote anything, so I'm not necessarily going to, but if I'm not mistaken, by some of the things I've read in the past couple months, women usually are the ones that have more therapy than the men do. Men are just, they don't like to open up. And that's the worst part, because a lot of times then, they end up taking their lives because they have so many things that they feel like they're carrying on their own and all that stuff that they have nobody to talk to. But that's not true. You can seek professional help, and it's just I love the fact that therapy exists and stuff like that. It's just such a helpful tool for all of us to be able to find healing, find wisdom and knowledge, to be able to put into practice, and then to share it and spread it to the world, to people that we love and even people who we don't know.
That's for sure. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I think the only thing I could add left was kind of going back to the iron sharpens iron verse from the Bible. Right. Some of like the breakdowns of it and the significance behind it. Essentially, like there's these 4 breakdowns I was able to find where like the first one is constant fellowship. It says the proverb suggests that the need for constant fellowship with others. That's a must. Right. Also, fulfilling the law of Christ. Iron sharpening iron is an opportunity to fulfill the law of Christ. I mean, the law of Christ could be multiple things. Right. We could discuss that in another time, whether it's like living by the 10 Commandments, living by different things that the Lord has said throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament of how we should live our lives, how we should behave ourselves in front of people, so on and so forth. Surrounding oneself with wise people.
For sure.
The proverb and the book of Proverbs in general is full of knowledge and wisdom. So it highlights that one of the benefits of surrounding oneself with wise and godly people is that relationships with one believer sharpens us as individuals. Again, that's why it's super important to have the right people around you. And then working through conflict. This suggests that our job as iron is to remain to work through difficulty and to lovingly and loyally stay close. Mm-hmm. Like that's what good. He said. He checks on his friends. He checks on his people. He makes it a priority on a weekly basis to call up these certain people and ask, how are you? How are you doing? What are you up to? I mean, those are key elements that we need to be able to put into practice. Because a lot of times nowadays, I feel like when people ask, how are you? It's literally just, how are you? Yeah. Keep on tracking. They don't care how you're actually doing, whether you're doing great or, you feel like you're going through hell.
For sure.
How are you is genuinely, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Yeah. How are you mentally? How are you with your family, with your friends? How are you doing financially? How are you doing whatever?
I just think when it comes to that, a lot of people don't take life as serious as they should. Like, they don't understand a lot of things are like a lot more serious to certain people than what they think. Yeah. And I think that comes a long way. Like, people should be very, what do they call it? Aware of the things they do for the most part. Like, you can live a subconscious life, but if you live it with a well-trained mind and living by example instead of just living like everybody else is living, I think it takes them a long way,
And you stand out in the crowd.
For sure, man. Like, and that's why people, respect so much people that are talented, people that are whether they have morals or not. I'm trying to give a big example overall speaking. It's hard for so many people to stay disciplined, to stay focused, to educate themselves, to do all these things. So when they see these people on TV or on a podcast, like, okay, we don't have a huge following right now, but like, how many people have told us, man, that's great, that's a great idea, that's freaking awesome, you guys are keep pushing.
We
because they know know that the consistency that we continue to do on this podcast and to project and the things we say and how we practice these things, it's hard for so many people to do. You get what I'm saying? So
and
that's
to
why
stay
they
consistent, like for us when you know, like the subscriber count isn't there or the likes isn't there or whatever it might be, like a lot of people quit. We're just gonna keep going full steam ahead, and we know at some point this podcast is gonna blow up, and we enjoy doing it. It's not,
of course, that's
I like it. I like it a lot because I feel like we're educating you guys, but we're educating ourselves in the same process, and that to me is super rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a saying here before we take off for today. It says, if you rearrange the letters in depression, this is quite clever. I like this one. You'll get I pressed on. Your current situation, your current situation is not your final destination. Let me read it one more time because it's freaking awesome. If you rearrange the letters in depression, you'll get I pressed on. Your current situation is not your final destination. And I love leaving you guys on this positive note because it's refreshing, it's rejuvenating, it's encouraging, it's another day to push through and press on, like it says. Don't worry about depression. I left today on the Instagram and on TikTok and all that, all our platforms. I said, let's start this week on a strong note. Anything that's never negative, turn it into a positive, and just continue to follow us. Like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel and every other platform that we have on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We've been bumping up numbers on Spotify, so thank you for that. We're doing really good. We got a lot more followers.
Instagram,
I've been meaning to. Yeah, Instagram's doing really good, and TikTok. We're doing really good on TikTok, so thank you guys for that support as well. So just follow us on all our social platforms, on our personal platforms too, if you so decide to. We thank you guys for tuning in as always.
Yeah, thank you.
We love you guys as always, and just stay encouraged. Be what nobody else is for you, and you'll see how life will bring you like-minded people, and things will flourish through time. And just
people are usually attracted to different people. You know what I mean? The people that kind of typically stand out because of kind of just the way you carry yourself or the way you behave and whatnot. So definitely be that person who stands out in a dark room.
For sure. Anyways, it'll be until next time, guys. Thank you for watching and tuning into the Bump Podcast. We love you, and it'll be until next time.
Have a great week.